city where the girls are so pretty. I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone.
Greetings, cats and kittens. Welcome once again to Baggy Hi-Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. Been a while since I've made a video, and what's happened since I've been away? Well, I've been on holiday. I went to Bruges in Belgium for 1 week. Have to report, lovely city. I also went to the city of Ghent, but not many record shops and slim pickings. I just bought a few picture sleeve 7-inch singles. Anyhow, welcome to module 8 of this series of Listen with Baggy. And the notion behind this Listen with Baggy series is appreciation of our record collections rather than constant consumption and buying new records all the time. So delving back into my collection to listen to albums I've not listened to in a while and seeing how I react to them. So 6 records, quite varied. The first one I'm going to show is a compilation album called Batty and Obnoxious. There were a spate of these collections of 60s garage rock, rockabilly, R&B, blues, novelty records that came out in the late 80s. This is on the Torture label, and it's a collection. This is the subtitle, Awful Oral Erg. Now, I think the first one I bought in this series back in the day was the fantastic compilation Wavy Gravy. And this one is probably just as good. It collects, as I mentioned, all those kind of novelty records, obscure novelty records from the early 60s, I guess most of them. It includes the Singing Dogs doing Hot Dog Boogie, pre-sampling, but it does actually have dogs leading the melody. She Was a Mau Mau by Bob Ridgely. My Boyfriend's Learning Karate, that was must have been a novelty which predated Kung Fu. The Way Out Mummy, a horror novelty song. Johnny and the Barbars, I Can't Sleep. Pat Stakes, which is a good one, by Sal Massey's Untouchables. There's also another, there's another warning against LSD in the crooner style track Acid by Stu Mitchell. But the track I'm going to play from this is the first track, which is a great kind of frat rock riff, Monkey Man by Baby Huey and the Babysitters. So I thoroughly enjoyed listening to this. It's been many a year since I listened to it, and had some good fun listening to it. Next one, going back to the UK, late 70s, Tubeway Army's first album. First album release by Gary Newman and his pals. Tubeway Army started in about 1977, I believe, as a sort of new wave punky outfit. And so this is the first recording. Gary Newman at that stage was called Gary Webb, but he was looking through the yellow pages and saw a person who was a plasterer, I believe. Oh no, sorry, a plumber called Gary Neumann. And he decided to change his name, sort of modernized it a bit by becoming Gary Newman, N-U-M-A-N. The content of these songs is very much influenced by, apparently, he was reading a lot of Philip K. Dick and J.G. Ballard, so all that sort of alienation and confusion about reality definitely comes across very clearly, and that would be Gary's stock in trade for quite a few years to come. I haven't listened to this album. There's not much synthesizer on this one. It is still quite punky, but you definitely realise how promising a songwriter Gary Newman would become, or already was at this stage. It's definitely a solid album, on from 1978. The next album after this, next Tubeway album after this was Replicas, and the rest is history, as he became a very successful synth artist, synth pop music maker. I didn't really catch on to Gary Numan. I just thought he was a sort of a Bowie copyist for many years, and it took me a while to really appreciate him. And I was talking to someone who was a really, really big fan of Gary Numan the other day, who still goes to see him live, and he was saying that Gary, when he performs live, actually smiles these days, so it doesn't have that kind of robot image that he had in the late 70s and early 80s. But yeah, excellent. Really enjoyed this. Very punchy, very punky, but with that nice kind of sci-fi alienated subject matter. So excellent album. Tubeway Army, iconic sleeve. There's Gary on the back with his blonde hair at that stage. Yeah, it's on, did I say it was on Beggar's Banquet, the red label, the Beggar 4, so I think that was in the early days of the label. So if you haven't heard it, definitely give it a try. And now some needle drops. Next, a little bit of American garage rock revival from the 80s in the form of the band The Cynics. Hadn't played this one in a long time. This is their first album from 1986. That time of the decade was definitely a time when lots of youngsters were discovering 60s garage rock and psych via the Pebbles comps, etc. And so this band, the Cynics, were no exception, but they did it really, really well. It's on their own Get Hip record label. The album's called Blue Train Station, and this girl here, apparently, I was trying to find out what's happened to the members since 1986. She opened a prestigious art gallery in the Chelsea district of New York. But the band is still going, I think, with the original singer and the original drummer, still to this day, churning out some really high-octane, exciting corkers, very much in debt to the original 60s model of Farfisa and fuzz guitar, pounding drums and snotty vocals. Really, really enjoyed this one. In fact, it was even better this time round after a few years of it languishing on the shelf. So must listen to try to find out what their recent records are like by the Cynics. This next record is from the Rubble series that Bam Caruso put out. Mainly that Rubble series collected 60s UK garage and psych pop. But this volume 9 is an exception, and I hadn't really ever listened to this one very much. It's called Plastic Wilderness. It's Rubble series volume 9. And this collects psych and garage bands, 60s psych and garage bands from the Netherlands, a genre which has been christened Nederbeat. And really what prompted me to dig this one off the shelf is I saw Madam Sin playing some lovely original 45s of these Nederbeat bands, including The Outsiders and Q65, very much in the sort of Pretty Things style. But on this album you do get a variety. It's not just sort of garage, it's you get some like Wacko Psych by Group 1850, and also Le Baroque, St. Giles System, The Zips, The Motions, Sharks and Me. Yeah, that track by Group 1850 is really wacko. Mother No Head. But the sample I'm going to play is by the excellent Outsiders. Now, many bands in the 60s were called the Outsiders, but as Madam Sin said, really the Dutch Outsiders is the one that you really need. And I'm going to do a needle drop by the Outsiders for your enjoyment, I hope. Okay, the next album changes the mood a little bit. It's Mark Bolan, The Beginning of Doves collection, which came out in 1974, but it's a collection of demos and unreleased tracks from the Elfin King that he recorded in 1966 and 1967. So these predate Tyrannosaurus Rex, but they're very much in the Tyrannosaurus Rex style, but also a little bit kind of more pop psyche as well as Jasper C. Debussy. That would have been a single. I don't think it was released as a single, but this was released to cash in on the success that T-Rex were having, 1973, 1974. But I don't know whether people who bought it were maybe disappointed, because it is very much acoustic and there's a few bongos thrown in. But yeah, I really enjoyed this album. I remember enjoying it at the time when I first bought it. It's on a label I've never heard of before, but authorised from Track Records. The record label is Media Motion Limited. But yeah, it underlines really what a true original Mark Bolan was, and how interesting and how prolific he was, and really, I don't think you can really go wrong with any Bolan music. So yes, this was a hit as well to hear again. The beginning of Doves by Mark Bolan. And finally, the 6th album, which I dug off the shelves, which I hadn't listened to in a long time, by a band which no one seems to want to speak about in the VC. And that band is Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I even remember when Keith Emerson died, there weren't really many tributes to him. I'm wondering whether, even with prog fans, whether this band still are kind of tainted with that they were overindulgent or too bombastic or whatever. But this is their first album from 1970. Greg Lake wanted to leave King Crimson, strangely enough, after the success of their first In the Court of the Crimson King album. And I think the Nice had just broken up, and Keith Emerson got together with Greg Lake and also Carl Palmer, who had been the drummer in Atomic Rooster. So they were already a bit of a prog supergroup, even in 1969, 1970. I think if I'm going to listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I probably would dig out Brain Salad Surgery, really. I think it's probably in a way, the most successful album, but it is a later one. Now, this is early, and I have to say, a brilliant album. I think that early prog sound when synthesizers were, really large Moog modular synthesizers that were huge things with lots of wires and plugins, and very not the portable keyboard that they are today. So it has that kind of gloopy Moog sound, and I really enjoy Keith Emerson's playing on this, and really some good tunes on here, as well as the tricky prog outings. Good balance, I think, on this record. I really like the sleeve as well, and that nice font there, and also the nice font you can see on the track listing as well. Highlights: Take a Pebble and Lucky Man, which I'm going to do a needle drop of. I just really like the way Keith Emerson just goes berserk at the end of this fairly sensitive Greg Lake song, and just shows off what he can do with his Moog or Moog. So so listening to all 6 of these records again, I enjoyed them all. Good experience. Hope you enjoyed the needle drops. See you in the next video. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Crazy child, you deep down.